Barcelona lose 2-1 against Girona, right? And this comes after, obviously, Barcelona lost 4-0 against Atletico de Madrid in the Copa del Rey semifinal, right? Not only does this mean that Barcelona have now lost two games back to back, right? One for obviously it's two different competitions, but 80%, I think we can say that we are 80% sure that Barcelona are out of the Copa del Rey. And we can now confirm that Barcelona, let go of the lead against Real Madrid. I thought they were 4 points behind, but I know you mentioned they're two. I did see the standings, so yeah, they are 2 points behind, but they lost the lead. Give me your initial reactions. Give me your thoughts of the match against Girona. Give me, I don't know, just tell me the things that you thought about the game going into the game. What did you expect? And then now that the game is over and we lost, I mean, give me your thoughts.
Uh, yeah, dude. Like I told you earlier, right? I think if because when Pedri got injured, this was in January, I believe. When he got injured, I remember I was looking at Barca's schedule, right, to see what games he was going to miss.
Yeah.
Um, and then I remember thinking, I was like, oh, this looks like a doable schedule. Barca shouldn't struggle too much in the month of February, right? Because they don't have too many important games. And no, boy, was I wrong, bro. If you would have told me that Barca would have potentially been, like you said, right, 80% chance out of the Copa del Rey and then lose the lead to Real Madrid in the league in 1 week, I would have been like, nah, I don't think so, bro. I don't think that, I don't think that can happen. But here we are, right? So yeah, dude. They're now 2 points behind Real Madrid, right? So now they're, and it's crazy because a lot of people have been saying that it's the crappiest Real Madrid in years, and I think it's true, bro.
Yeah.
I think it is true, so that says a lot about Barca right now that they're not capitalizing and taking advantage of Real Madrid's downfall this season, right, under Xavi Alonso at the beginning and whatnot. But yeah, dude, I mean, it's just crazy how 1 week can change the outlook of the season, in my opinion, because before this week, right, we were thinking about Barca are favorites in the Copa del Rey, they're favorites in the league to win the league, right? And now we're sitting here and we're saying, damn, there's a chance that Barca can go trophyless. Right? I mean,
I
looking at
agree with
Barca
you.
how they're, yeah, looking at Barca how they're playing right now, bro. I mean, you don't. Let's say Barca do get PSG in the round of 16. I mean, can you comfortably say that that Barca are gonna get past PSG in the round of 16? Hell, even against Newcastle, bro, I wouldn't be too sure, to be honest. So yeah, I think this is all on Barca, bro. I saw the game, and honestly, I know Flick was mad at the end. He was complaining about the referees, about that foul on Kunde before Girona's second goal. But you know what, bro? To be honest, Barca were just playing horrible. They were just playing horrible. They weren't connecting. Too lackluster, no creativity. Way too shaky in defense. Of course, back to Flick trusting certain players that, in my opinion, bro, he should not be trusting as much as he does. I want to say something real quick. I am surprised that Flick. I don't know if it's favoritism, bro, but I'm surprised how Flick is so quick to bench certain players like Asado, right? And not even bring him on, bro, after a bad game. But here we have Ferran Torres starting again after that horrific performance against Atletico Madrid. And he goes on, and instead of leaving Balde on the bench, bro, he brings him on in the last 20 minutes to do what? Absolutely nothing besides almost cost 2 goals. So that's, I think this one, I think it falls on Barca and it falls on Flick. I know maybe we'll talk about it later on, but we haven't been criticizing Flick because I believe he's done a tremendous job at Barca. But I do think that there's certain decision making that he's been doing that it's kind of odd and questionable, to say the least.
You know what? I agree with you. I agree with you 100% because after Barcelona went and lost against Atletico de Madrid, I think we both expected for Barcelona to come out today, right? Specifically today, and pretty much give a different version of Barcelona, right? I think for the first 15, 20 minutes, we were trying to see, well, Barcelona were trying to be that, that team that they've been with Fleek, pressuring, kind of going for the balls. But I think as the game progressed, you could see a decline happening, right? And Barcelona kind of going back to the ways of this season, right? When Barcelona have struggled and time in, time out. and then obviously against the match that we saw against Atletico de Madrid. With that being said, is with that being said, I'm also pretty much irritated because the last player that I expected to see today, bro, in the starting lineup was Ferran Torres, right? Because not only has he been pretty much garbage all season, right? I think that everybody was able to see how bad Ferran Torres was against Atletico de Madrid, right? And then the fact that Ferran Torres was, I think, played the whole game, 90 plus 10 minutes against Atletico de Madrid. And then he plays like almost 70 plus, I think like 72, 73 minutes against Girona today. Like how you mentioned, without even having a single shot on target. That blew my mind. It blows my mind, bro. And I agree with you. I think sometimes you can kind of start questioning Fleek and his idea of like, what is this obsession that he has with Ferran Torres, bro, with playing as number nine? Because honestly, dude, I don't think that Ferran Torres can play as a number nine. I think we all see it. I think we all see that. And I think it's starting to kind of annoy us because now we're in a transition. Well, we're pretty much coming in the stage of the season where the Champions Leagues, the big important games are coming up in the Champions League. And yeah, also, like how you mentioned, we went from potentially being able to see Barcelona lift the La Liga, right? Or even the Copa del Rey to, like how you mentioned right now, possibly going trophyless. And I was kind of irritated, bro, because at the end of the game, I saw Fleek, going up to the referees, and I don't really like that, right, bro? I don't really like that because in the press conference when they lost against Atletico de Madrid, he was pretty much complaining about the referee. He was saying like, how the referees are biased and how they make some questionable calls. But I just think that's you not holding your players accountable. You could probably be holding them accountable in the dressing room, the locker room, yeah, of course. But you know what, bro? I think that certain fans probably want you to hold certain players accountable in public because you
Yeah.
cannot go ahead and just make it seem like it was the referee's fault when technically speaking, bro, in the game against Atletico de Madrid, Barcelona did not show up for the whole 45 minutes. They didn't show up, and they are lucky that Atletico de Madrid in the start of the second half kind of took their foot off the pedal because if they wanted to, bro, easily they could have that game could have probably finished 5-6-7-0 in my opinion, right? And then you go ahead and you transition into this game and you include Ferran Torres, which, like I said, I mentioned already. I don't even want to say much about Ferran Torres anymore. But then you leave Balde, right, out. And I say, okay, I'm glad he left Balde out because Balde was another player that was horrendous against Atletico de Madrid. But then he subs him in, bro. He subs him in. I'm like, I don't think Gerard Martin was having a bad game. I don't think Gerard Martin was having I think Gerard Martin was having a really good game, in my opinion, bro. And then another player that we've also been talking about Koundé, right? How off he's been looking this season. Eddie Garcia, the center back, is not working. I don't know why he keeps, trusting Eddie Garcia. If he wants to maybe give a slap or a wake up call to Koundé, why don't you put Eddie Garcia's right back? I think Eddie Garcia's right back isn't bad, right? And then, you pretty much put Lewandowski in the last 20, 15 minutes of the game. It's not going to work out, of course. And then you go and you complain to the free, you're like, complaining on the middle. For what? Use that energy to go ahead and complain to the players who are not performing. Olmo, Fermin, I don't think we saw any good things of them in this game. So yeah, it's kind of irritating, bro, to see Barcelona go out this way. But I think it's you could say the I guess the decisions they made during the transfer market is starting to catch up to them.
Yeah.
You
No, I
know?
agree, bro. And you know what? It's crazy too because I wanted to share with you some stats, right? And I think this is going all over X, and I
Yeah.
think you've seen them, right? And I've noticed, bro. I have him here on my phone. His stats, right? It started against Osasuna on, let's see, December 13, 2025, bro. 6.1 rating. Okay? Barca 1-0. Against Villarreal, okay? December of 21st, 2025. 6.6 rating. Barca 1-0. January 3rd, 2026, against Espanyol. 6.1 rating. Barca 1-0. Okay? Against Real Sociedad, January 18, 2026. Barca lost to Real Sociedad away from home. Rating 6.5. Okay? And then we go to this, finally, I wouldn't even say good rating, but average rating, right? Against Elche, January 31st, 2026. Barca win 3-1 away. His rating 7.1
Against Elche, bro. And nothing against Elche, but it's not
against
like a
Elche.
top tier team.
It's not a top tier. Okay, this month, February 7th, 2026, against Mallorca at home. Okay, Barca win 3-0. Barca had a pretty good game. His rating 6.5. Okay, and today against Girona, Barca lose obviously 2-1. His rating 6.5. Okay, so I just don't see, bro. If I just don't get, or I don't know if Fleek is seeing Ferran Torres' performance, or maybe if he's just saying, or is trying to prove. I'm hoping that I'm hoping, bro, that he's trying to prove a point to the board and saying, hey, if you guys don't give me a 9, this is what we have. I'm hoping to God that that's what he's trying to do, bro, because there's just no way, bro, that you can have your starting 9 having these ratings and you continue to start him, bro. At this
Weak.
point, just started Lewandowski, dude, because at least we have an excuse. Oh, it's because our main striker is 38 years of age. At the very
Right.
least, we have an excuse. What excuse do we have with Ferran Torres, bro? He's in his prime right now. He's what, 25, 26 years old. So
25,
what excuse?
26, and then he
So
cost us 55 million, bro.
yeah, and he's one of the we keep saying it. He's one of the top 10 highest paid players of Barcelona. He's
Yeah.
190,000 a week. So I honestly, bro, looking at these ratings, right, and looking at his performances, bro, I've never disliked the Barca player ever, bro, as much as I dislike Ferran Torres, and especially when he goes after these ratings, scores a goal, and then he starts everybody up, and that's what irritates the hell out of me, and and then another thing that irritates me is Deco coming out and saying that we don't need a number 9. So apparently Deco's not aware of these ratings. I don't think he is. Because according to Deco, we don't need a number 9. We have Ferran Torres.
Yeah.
Nah, dude. I'm kind of glad this is happening to Barca, so I think Barca can react and actually be like, hey, you know what? We do need to work on this squad. We need to improve this squad if we actually want to win titles and we want to win against the big teams. Because, like I kept saying, bro, this whole season, if Barca go on, especially Deco on the board, they go on believing that Barca can compete against the best and win the Champions League, bro. Having Ferran Torres as their starting number 9 and having Eddie Garcia as their starting center back, it's not gonna work out, bro. They're gonna get humiliated. I mean, you can see it. You can see it coming. The writing is on the wall.
No, yeah. You're right about that because you know what? I think when Barcelona started the season, I think we were all excited because we expected for Lamine Yamal to be better of that than last season, and I think he has, right? I think to be fair to
Yeah,
Lamine Yamal, I think that Lamine Yamal, there's certain games that he messes up because of his age, and you can kind of excuse him. But then you can always see him trying, He's always dribbling,
yeah,
dribbling, 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 dribbling. He's always trying. Today was no exception, right? We saw Lamine Yamal constantly trying. But then there's players, in my opinion, who need like a slap in the wrist, right? And like how we mentioned earlier, right? One of them is Balde,
yeah,
Kunde, right? Being another one whose level has dropped down immensely, you get me? And then you have the Jung in the middle, who, in my opinion, we all know the type of player that Jung is, right? But then it's like, why don't you go ahead and put Mark Bernal? Why don't you go ahead and put Mark Bernal? Why don't you put Mark Casado? And I agree with you, right? You said that there are certain players that are so quick to be benched by Fleek, like that of, for example, Mark Casado, right? But then, dude, when you look at those stats, if me and you can find them, for example, and then they're all over Twitter X, whatever, you're gonna tell me that Deco on the board is not aware of Ferran Torres performing like that? Like, what
hmm
excuse do you have for that? You can't have an excuse. I can understand one or
what?
two games, right?
Yeah, and what justification do you have, bro, of continuing to start that player every single
Right.
game as a starter?
100%. I agree with you. None, to be honest, besides the fact that you're trying maybe being biased. So I think that the way Barcelona have been playing today and against Atletico de Madrid, it has been no exception to that of how they started the season, right?
Yeah,
And I feel like Fleek has tried to pretty much do whatever he can, but then we go back, right? I think Fleek needs to kind of be able to put his foot down, in my opinion, bro, against Deco, right, in the board, because at the start of the season, right, even mid-season, well, we're still mid-season, but even in the season, during the season, right, Flick said that he needed a center back after Inigo Martinez left, right? Then Deco brings him Cancelo. Bro, has Flick used
Bro,
Cancelo?
dude, that's so hilarious, bro. It's kind of like, let's say you're a manager at a department, right? And then one of your best employees, one of your best staff members leaves, and then you go to your, I don't know, to your owners, right, or whatever, whoever's the owner of that company, and you tell them, hey, I need you guys to replace this member, otherwise, we're gonna struggle. And then they bring you another staff member with completely different skill sets, not working in the same department or the same function that the prior staff member was working in, and they tell you, "Oh, here you go, work with this one." Come on, bro. I mean, and I told you, right? I think Flick has been too nice with the board because he hasn't been complaining. He's been kind of accepting it, like, "Oh yeah, this is what we have. Oh yeah, Cancelo has, he can provide us with a lot. I'm in conjunction. I'm always talking with Deco and the board, and we agree with the players that come in." I don't think so, bro. And I told you, when you start seeing Fleet complaining about the signings on the media, on the press conferences, that's when you're probably gonna see Fleet getting tired of being there, and he may just want to bounce. He may just want to leave.
Yeah, I think so too, right, bro? And I think that this is another example of that of what Deco did last season to Xavi,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Xavi last season, it's kind of like if you're looking at it, bro, it's kind of like a deja vu moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when Xavi was there, he clearly said, I need another CDM and a holding midfielder, and he wanted Subimendi,
Yeah, I
right?
remember.
And so what happened was Deco said, "Hey, we don't have money, but guess what? I brought in this 55 million Brazilian superstar who's 18 years old."
Imagine
And then
that, bro.
Xavi looks and says, "Hey, but you know what? I have Margiru here, who I'm playing, who's also 17 and came from Barcelona's cantera. Why can't we just focus on this player? If I'm the manager, if I'm telling you that this is what I need, why can't you just give me what I need? Especially after you telling me there's no money, but you go ahead and clearly do the complete opposite of what you're doing, of what you're saying,
This is
right?
exactly what he did to Xavi, bro. It's exactly what Deco's doing to Fleek right now. What he did to Fleek.
Right. The only
Exactly the same
difference,
thing.
right? The only difference back then to now is that I think that Fleek is a little bit more quiet about it. He's not as
Yeah.
vocal as Xavi, because Xavi was very vocal, right? And I think to
Mm-hmm.
the end, he got kind of irritated how he pretty much said, like, you know what? It's a very hard job to coach Barcelona because we're in a transition where, and I don't think he lied.
No.
He said we're in a transition where we don't. A manager can come and say, "I want this player, this player, this player, this player, that player, that player," right? And then, and then where now with Fleek, Deco does the same thing. You're gonna tell me that there's no other? I mean, dude, I'm not a scout. I'm not the sporting director, right? Of an enormous club. You're gonna tell me that Deco and the scouts can't find a free center back agent who's free,
Yeah.
right? You're gonna tell me
You
that?
would assume. You
You're
would
gonna tell me
assume they
that?
would,
Yeah.
bro.
You're gonna tell me that Cancelo's the only player they were able to find who's a free agent? Come on, bro. No. What? So, and then you look at it, right? And Fleek says, "Yeah, like how you mentioned, right? Yeah, I talked with Deco. We all agree. Whatever. Okay, well, guess what? It doesn't seem like it because why are you? If so, why haven't you played Cancelo? Only like what 25, 30 minutes of the game since he got here.
Yeah.
Defeats the
The
purpose. Otherwise, of what you're saying. Hmm.
Yes, the actions always speak louder than the words. If that were the case, then he will be playing Cancelo. But he isn't playing him because that's not the player that he asked for. That's what he got. That's what they gave him. And I think, bro, to be honest, like Fleek, the reason why we haven't criticized Fleek is because I think last season, bro, he did more than what we expected him to do with the squad that he had at his disposal, and he didn't even ask for nobody, no new players, none of that stuff. He worked with what he had, and I do think he got the best out of them. But I think it's that honeymoon stage, that we mentioned
Yeah.
before, where a new coach comes in, all the players want to prove themselves, they all give their 100% because they all want to start, and then once they start getting comfortable, right, then we start seeing what we see with Kunte as right and right back. We see what we see with Balde as left back, right? We start seeing maybe, for example, a little bit of the De Jong that we were seeing on the Xavi, where he's a little bit too cute on the ball, a little bit lazy, and certain players are just not giving the 100%, right? So I think right now Flick is facing the same thing that Xavi faced in his second full season, where the players they just stopped giving it 100%. Even Xavi said it, right? It was my fault. I took responsibility because in the first season we were 100% motivated and the players were giving their all, and in the second season we relaxed.
Yeah,
And I think this is what the situation that Flick is facing right now, bro. And I think unfortunately you pair that up with Barca didn't even have such a great squad to begin with, then you get the results that you get, right? So I think Flick, if he's gonna continue at Barca right after the season, I do think that he's gonna have to, like you said, put his foot down, bro, and start asking for players that he really needs, that he can clearly see that he needs, because he said it, right? I look at the back line and I can see another center back. He's basically saying, I want another center back. That's what I need. And that is what he needs, bro, because Eddie Garcia cannot be a starting center back. Araujo is shaky, right? Gerard Martin, yeah, he's not doing a bad job, but I mean, are you really gonna say that he's an undisputable center back of Barcelona like Cubarsí? Probably not, right? So I do think he needs one, and then and of course the whole nine situation, bro, where Deco's over here saying that the Barca don't need a number nine. I don't know, man. I want whatever he's smoking, bro. To be honest, to kind of like get me in
hey,
that state of mind as well. To be honest,
yeah, bro. I think that today's game is a reflection of Barcelona's whole season, right?
yeah,
And I think that like I said, the decisions that Barcelona have made during the transfer market is starting to catch up to them. And I also believe that I know Flick is trying, but I also believe that if Barcelona don't figure it out soon, bro, we can, like how you mentioned, see how trophyless Barcelona. And I don't know, because there's still a lot of league to be played for, right, bro? We still have the Real Madrid game, you know,
yeah.
um, but nothing guarantees that Barcelona's gonna win. That's the problem. You get me?
Yeah, and then of course, now you're behind Real Madrid, so now you're dependent
Mhm.
on what Real Madrid do. Before, you were 4 points ahead, bro. You lost that 4 point lead, and you went 2 points behind, so you lost 6 points to Real Madrid. And like I said, bro, this isn't even a good Real Madrid in my opinion. So yeah, dude. I mean, it's honestly bad. And like I say, I think if Barca do end up going trophyless, let's say they get knocked out of the Champions League, right, and let's say that even if they beat Real Madrid, right, in the Clasico, let's say they lose more points in the league, more than Real Madrid do, and Real Madrid somehow win the league, I think we're gonna come back to this moment right now, bro, and then we're gonna be like, yeah, it was during that
Fed.
horrible week that Barca had, yeah, this week.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean the Super Copa de España, bro. I mean, yeah, it's a title, but in my opinion, it's not like I think the Copa Rey has more value to it, and then obviously comes
Yeah,
La Liga domestically, and then obviously comes the Champions League. And the Champions League, bro, unless Barcelona really change, they can probably they can do something. If not, I don't see them winning it. And then right now, La Liga is 50-50, of course, and the Copa del Rey, I would say Barcelona need a miracle to overturn that leg. So I guess we'll see
yeah.
what's up, dude. I guess we'll see what happens.